Good trade! Got him. He's hit. No, he's not. Now he is. Okay.
Welcome to Explosive Enterprises, and with the VFC FAL review being about 2 years old now, I thought it was time to do a follow-up on what we've learned since then, especially since we finally got our hands on the Deluxe model FAL. So let's start with what sets apart the Deluxe model from the Standard, and then we'll talk about what issues both models have shown since our initial review. First off, this is surplus furniture, so be aware that the DX comes with the same crappy furniture as the default model. Now this is a Type 3 receiver compared to Type 1 on the default model. The Type 3s we discussed in the FAL video is a simplified design, increasing weight but reducing cost to manufacture. This receiver is also steel, unlike the aluminum alloy receiver on the default model, and the barrel, gas block, and charging handle are also now steel as well. But it still isn't quite full steel out of the box because, for whatever reason, the gas tube and piston are the same aluminum alloys on the default model. DNA makes drop-in steel replacements, which I've already installed. As mentioned, the barrel is full steel, and it's actually a one-piece barrel. A DNA steel barrel is still compatible if you want a shorter setup, though I did have some hop issues that I believe are related to this specific DNA outer. We had a DNA barrel for the previous FAL, and it was fine, and others have had no issues, so this is not a universal problem we need to investigate further. The DX model also has markings showing FAL Cal 762 on the left, Fabrique Nationale Herstal Belgique on the right, and the main serial number. This serial is unique to each receiver, but all other serialized parts, and oddly the other side of the receiver, show a 4888 serial number, and that's common across all the guns. Lastly, there were a few minor design changes made for the DX. The retention pin for the hop collar is now a single piece with the grub screw, making it easier to extract. The selector detent and spring are held in by a roll pin rather than a solid pin, so it is less likely to come out. And the takedown lever has been beefed up so that it doesn't fully close when locked up, which is correct. And that's it. Otherwise, it's the same as the base model. For double the price, you get a steel receiver, steel one-piece barrel, steel gas block, and still the same crappy furniture and all the same issues. It's an improvement, but realistically this ought to be $200, maybe $300 more. It certainly shouldn't be $600 more, especially when it still isn't full steel externally thanks to that fragile gas tube, and doesn't even have a rubberized butt pad. Oh wait, I forgot to mention it comes with the wooden box, with grammatically incorrect French, that arrived with a broken internal spacer. Very cool. Anyway, so since the DX has basically all the same issues as the default model, let's talk about what those are, both issues that we mentioned in the original review and new issues that have come up since then. Out of the box, the DX model still suffers from doubling like the base model, occasionally firing 2 shots on semi. The fix is the same as for the base model, just filing a more aggressive angle into the trigger sear. This is a 10-minute job or less and a piece of cake to do thanks to the FAL's simple and easy to access fire control group. We also saw this gun stop consistently resetting the trigger after a few thousand rounds, but then a few hundred more shots smoothed it out and it went back to working as it should. Full steel fire control groups will self-polish like that, and we have not encountered or heard of any more significant issues since then. Next, the gas block is still capable of shifting from side to side unless the securing screw is really tensioned down, so that will need to be done on a new gun. It is also viable to drill a small divot in the barrel for the screw to go in and help keep it aligned, but then the challenge will be getting the barrel tight enough while still aligning the gas block properly. Now the short stroke buffer, and I want to apologize on this one. In our review of the FAL, we recommended just omitting the buffer entirely. What we didn't notice at the time was that this actually allows the tail on the carrier to contact the upper surface of the recoil tube and gradually peened it out of the way until the carrier could come all the way back. Sounds fine, except that some others have not been so lucky, and instead of gradually distorting material out of the way, the trigger housing just cracked. The good news is there are still a couple of straightforward alternatives if you don't like the default short stroke. First, the stock buffer can be cut down to just 1/8 of an inch or so, and that prevents the carrier from going far enough to cause a problem. Or there's a 3D printable buffer design available, which will also solve it. Speaking of amendments to our prior review, when removing the nozzle return spring plug screw, pull the nozzle into the carrier and try to avoid pushing the screw forwards while turning. If the plug slips out of its groove, it will become difficult to remove or reinstall without damaging the return spring. And while we're in the nozzle, we still recommend the CL Project adjustable valve, but for use around 1.5 joules, we recommend installing it upside down in the same manner as we showed in the VFC M249 and M16A1 reviews. This reduces the power range of adjustment and improves consistency. And when installing a pistol grip, make sure to pull it to the rear before fully tightening the screw. Having the grip too far forwards can cause it to interfere with the trigger. One potential issue on the original run of the basic model was breakage of the rear takedown lug on the receiver, but on newer batches of basic model FALs, it appears VFC has reinforced this lug and it's just not an issue on the DX's steel receiver. Next, VFC makes an aftermarket rail dust cover that copies the DSA design, but apparently is dimensionally too wide. This causes it to pull the walls of the receiver outwards when tightened, causing permanent damage. As a result, at present we recommend against the VFC rail, but a real DSA top rail will drop right in. Now this isn't strictly a functional issue, but out of the box the safety was not very lefty friendly, being too easy to accidentally bump out of the fire position. So we just knocked out the roll pin and stretched the detent spring a bit, and the extra tension makes it require a conscious effort to disengage. Lastly, for some reason the rear sights on both base model and DX FALs have been known to break from recoil. That is a very weird issue, and I suspect it may have to do with the upper portion of the trigger housing working itself loose and then torquing the sight under recoil. Note that in addition to the screw on the front that holds it together, which I managed to snap and have yet to extract, there's also one hidden under the stock, so make sure both are heavily thread-locked and fully tightened. In any case, this is a real rear sight and it was a drop-in fit. That's it for potential problems we've observed in the last 2 years, and none of them require expensive aftermarket to fix, just a bit of caution and proactive effort. One thing that has actually improved since our initial review is hop performance, because after much experimentation, we've gotten the best results from a stock VFC blue bucking. I'm not entirely sure why this is. It might be that VFC did a sneaky change to the bucking design, or it could be that it's extremely sensitive to alignment during installation, but this works just as well as the FNC, which surprised us with its out-of-the-box accuracy. So having now gone over why the FAL DX isn't worth the price and all the problems we've encountered, let me tell you why I still really like this gun. It is still undeniably a boat anchor of a rifle, now even heavier at a bit over 10 pounds or 4.6 kilograms loaded, and magazines are big and awkward to carry too. But it is still a surprisingly modern feeling rifle for how old it is, with a left-hand bolt release and charging handle. The little bit of trigger modification to address doubling also makes for a crisp, clean break, and just enlarging the rear aperture a little makes for an excellent sight picture at airsoft ranges, plus railed top covers are readily available, and this rifle plays nice with optics. The high efficiency and good cold weather capability also mean this gun just keeps chugging along regardless of temperature, and propane is perfectly viable even at freezing. Hop up is easy to adjust with the included tool, requiring no disassembly, and the now surprisingly effective stock bucking slings BBs consistently and accurately. Beyond raw performance, it still has a nice, sharp report and a decent bit of recoil. Also, the magazines in particular still deserve every bit of praise I throw at them. They're simple, durable, easy to load, have high gas capacity, seal excellently, and have a moving gas router to compensate for any looseness or wobble. These are fantastic gas magazines. Frankly, these might just be my favorite gas mags, period. I don't want to spend too much time retreading things we already praised in previous review, but the bottom line is that while it does have out-of-the-box problems, once they're resolved, it's a reliable, effective, and fun-to-use rifle. In stock configuration, it's very long and front-heavy, but it does capture the good handling characteristics of the real thing, and of course you could shorten it if you like. None of the issues that have popped up since our initial review are significant enough to make us reconsider our recommendation. The real question, of course, is how it compares to the recently released FNC, as we've seen a lot of people wondering which of the two products from VFC is the better gun. And I think that's a very interesting comparison, particularly since the real steel caliber difference is not relevant, so let's look at them head to head. To start with, obviously the FAL out of the box is a bigger, longer, more awkward rifle with all the disadvantages those characteristics entail, but there are a lot more modernization parts available for the FAL, plus VFC has the compact OSW configuration on the way. So if you want a carbine, either rifle can do it, and an FAL para will be very similar to an FNC in overall profile. In terms of shooting, these are essentially the same gun, with comparable recoil, accuracy on stock parts, and ability to accept an adjustable valve. I mean, this makes sense given how similar the designs are. The FAL has an advantage in efficiency, particularly in cold weather, while the FNC has a few more BBs per mag and is less likely to siphon on full auto. What's significantly different between the two are the controls. The FAL has a better selector design, much easier to click between safe and semi, and it also has a stop on empty and bolt release. I find reloads on the FAL to be consistently quicker and easier, and the rock and lock clicks in with such authority that there's no need to tap the bottom of the mag to make sure it seats. FNC magazines do have a major advantage in gear compatibility, since they are just AR mags, but they also rely on a stop on empty system that we're still a bit uneasy about. But in terms of design, so far the FNC demonstrates fewer issues out of the box than the FAL. No doubling, no sights breaking, no receiver snapping, no messing with a short stroke buffer, and the much thicker gas block securing screw makes it easier to tighten. The FAL has a few caveats you need to be aware of and address early. The FNC is pretty much good to go out of the box. Plus, compared to the base model FAL, the FNC is slightly cheaper, has decent furniture that doesn't require replacement, and is cheaper to add an optic to. On the whole, I want to say that the FNC has the edge, but it obviously isn't a fair comparison because one of these has been out for 2 years and the other has been out for 2 months. I don't think either gun is the clear winner, so I'm going to fall back on my usual blatant cop-out and say that which one is better for you depends on your priorities. The FAL is easier to modernize and has considerable historical significance in its stock form, while the FNC uses more standard magazines and can share mags with VFC ARs. They're both solid guns at reasonable prices with their own quirks, but no major showstoppers. Just don't bother with the DX unless you desperately need that steel receiver. Well, I think that covers just about everything. Hope you enjoyed this follow-up. As always, thanks for watching.
Got him!